Borderlands 3's story is disappointing. There are a lot of things that could have been done way better, but to me the main reason the game's story is a letdown is because of how it mishandled the Calypso twins, and more specifically, how it mishandled Troy. It's not just because he and Tyreen are super annoying and unfunny throughout the whole game, though that is a major problem with it, and it was not fun listening to all their dialogue again for this video.
Yeah, 'cause you eat butts.
It's because the game spent like 2/3 of its story building Troy up to be the real main villain, but then they just completely scrapped the idea in the final chapters of the game. Borderlands 3's story has a lot to do with family.
Family.
There is a pattern throughout the game where we see characters betray their families to gain more power for themselves. Katagawa Jr. kills his family to make sure he's next in line to take over Maliwan, and Aurelia uses her brother, Sir Hammerlock, to become the head of Jacobs. With all the dialogue and cutscenes we see throughout much of the game's main story quest and side quest, it all seemed like Troy was slowly following that same pattern. Early in the game, it felt like Troy was like Tyreen's sidekick. He doesn't really act on his own, and it seems like Tyreen thinks very little of him.
I'm the siren. He's just a parasite. Keep this up and I'll be a god for real.
We'll be gods.
That's what I said.
He's obedient, and he has to be because he is dependent on Tyreen. She's the only thing keeping him alive since he needs to leech off her powers to survive. But once he absorbs Maya's powers, he learns he doesn't really have to rely on Tyreen, and his character starts to change. The next time we encounter Troy is in Jacob's mansion, and he says this.
We haven't really had a chance to get to know each other, huh? And Ty's been doing most of the talking. She does that, right? She's the center of the galaxy, and the rest of us just sort of orbit around her. But things are changing. Freaking look at me! I've never felt this good in my life! Woo! What is this? What is this? Your siren friend? She didn't know what she had. With this power, I can pull the stars out of the goddamn sky. You know, Tyreen says we should let you keep playing along. Yeah, a little competition gets our followers all riled up. But I'm not one of them. No, not anymore. And I'm done getting table scraps.
The cutscene also implies that he's become at odds with Tyreen, and Troy's actions and behaviors in the game start to reflect that. He starts showing anger towards Tyreen, who, again, was the only thing keeping him alive.
Hey Troy, all your followers are like super duper dead. Just a little FYI.
Ty, the Vault Thief killed both of our teams.
When the Calypso twins communicate with you, it was always Tyreen doing most of the talking, and Troy would usually just say something that made every scene involving the twins even more annoying. But later on in the game, Troy just straight up hijacks the call from Tyreen.
What's up? Slumming it in an abandoned mine. Alright, I gotcha. Well, just wanted to let you know that we're working on it.
I've got a big surprise for you. Huge reveal. You're gonna love it.
Troy, come on, we talked about this.
Anyway, the Great Vault beckons. Later, superfan.
Their partnership begins to look unstable. Even with their influence over the children of the Vault, Troy is the one anointing their followers and giving them special powers, and he starts to disagree with how Tyreen is leading them.
Yo fam! Kill the Vault Hunters for me, would you please? We're sort of busy at the moment.
Stop coddling them, Tyreen. Listen, filthy demented mouth breathers. I'm charging an entire goddamn moon. So why the hell are the Vault Thieves still alive? Kill them now, or I'll rip you apart and piss on your ashes!
Everything the game's story was setting up Troy for seemed like it was all going to culminate in his boss fight. Troy is leeching so much power from Tyreen in order to charge Elpis and fight our character that he's also killing her.
Troy! It hurts!
Keep going! Viewership's through the roof.
Stop! You're gonna kill me!
It felt like there was finally going to be payoff for all this buildup with Troy, but then we just kill him. And then we meet their dad.
Gonna go explore naked!
And then we kill Tyreen. The end. What? The story we end up getting is just so confusing and frustrating, and it makes no sense at all. Yes, the argument could be made that maybe I'm looking way too deep into everything and I'm giving things meaning where there really isn't supposed to be one. But you must admit that it makes no sense why they decide to focus so much more on Troy throughout the game compared to Tyreen when they were just going to end up killing him off anyway. This scene in particular, with Troy's lines hinting at something more with his character, is pointless in the end. All that time spent developing Troy's character, like that cutscene in Jacob's mansion, should have gone to Tyreen, so that when she becomes the sole villain in the final hours of the game, she's a little more compelling instead of how one-note she is for the entire game. Troy being the real villain would even tie in with the earliest chapters of the story a lot better too. Just like Katagawa Jr. killed his family to become head of mergers at Maliwan, and just like Aurelia betrayed her brother in order to become the head of Jacobs, Troy betrayed and killed his sister to have more power for himself. That would have made the game's story feel more cohesive, and it would have made those early side plots more meaningful than they actually are now, where it feels like they were just fun detours. When Borderlands 3 was first announced a while back, my main concerns were with its story and its villains. Borderlands 2 and Handsome Jack are a tough act to follow. All that Borderlands 3's story and the Calypso twins needed to be was serviceable, and I would be satisfied with it. And it's sad to see that those parts of the game couldn't even meet that low expectation.